The greatest tragedy of the past several decades isn't the outright counterfeiting of our currency by the criminal private banks or the psychopaths that they employ. Rather, it is the gross inaction and lack of focus by the masses to right the wrongs of those people and institutions that enslave the rest of us. This video is a call to action for Occupy Wall Street and the millions of people that have awoken to the gross inequities and social injustice that has enslaved the masses for thousands of years. Those hardworking and honest citizens of the world that continue to bear the brunt of massive forced transfers of wealth to the top 1%. Now, when we say the top 1%, we are talking about the real top 1%. This is not your neighborhood physician or businessman who's successful or happens to make a six-figure income. In fact, many of these people defend Occupy Wall Street, the movement, and there is nothing inherently wrong with personal success or making money. Rather, it is how you make it that we are concerned with. Specifically, we are speaking to those extremely powerful, secretive individuals that continue to directly and indirectly profit from the covert counterfeit operations of privately owned central banks around the world. This is critical, because it is these same institutions that are directly responsible for the massive wealth redistribution and inequality that we experience today. Our leadership is well aware that the current system is bankrupt. After all, they are the ones that built it. They're the architects. They're the designers. It wasn't the masses that created mortgage-backed securities, exotic debt instruments, derivatives, the securitization model, or even leverage. They did. These people are the top 1% for a reason, and they're very smart. That's exactly why they took out an insurance policy prior to the stock market crash of 2008 and the collapse of global financial markets. So guess what their insurance policy was? You. This was the plan all along. Design the system to fail and intentionally bankrupt the masses while carefully redistributing the wealth to the top 1%. Once the people lose everything and begin to take to the streets, such as the case today, they will begin to deliver to you the solution to the problem they created in the first place. While the hard-working slaves lay asleep, these criminals have been divvying up the loot, planning the heist, and siphoning off trillions of dollars in the process. Now, when it becomes painfully obvious to the citizens of the world that the current system isn't working anymore, the next step will be to force austerity, cut millions of pensions and retirement accounts, and stop making payments altogether. No more unemployment checks, welfare, Social Security, or other social programs. They simply can't afford it. Remember, taxpayer bailouts were never intended to save the economy. The goal was to bankrupt it. And as Rome burns, the bailouts and stimulus will continue into infinity until our currency has literally been inflated beyond any reasonable use, and then the entire system will collapse. You'll be begging for a solution at this point, and they'll gladly give it to you. The gasoline has already been poured, all they need to do is light the match. Now, what I've just described to you is pretty obvious stealing, and it is also morally wrong. It has and will ruin millions of people's lives. People will go hungry, some will die. Millions of people have already been sacrificed, and now that the masses have lost everything, they have begun to lose hope, and this is exactly where we sit today. This is Occupy Wall Street. Millions of people take to the streets as they continue to lose their homes, retirement accounts, pensions, 401ks, and life savings. Remember, this was the plan all along. Meanwhile, the same individuals that caused, orchestrated, and profited from the collapse in the first place walk the streets as free men. They sail their yachts, play golf, sip fine wine, and buy their third and fourth home, many of them yours. Who do you think owns the banks anyways? They do, and they're foreclosing on all of your real property as we speak. They are the kings and queens of today's society, and you, the peasant. You see, nothing has really changed in thousands of years. You've simply been conned and sold the illusion of freedom. You only think you're free. Need a house? A car? Sorry, you can't afford it. But we can lend you the money. All you have to do is pay us a little interest. Sound like a good deal? And you see, this is precisely the problem. All you do is pay. You pay interest on your house, your car, food, gas, college, not to mention bailouts for the cronies that bankrupted you and convinced you this is how things work in the first place. And when you really investigate, when you really begin to search for the truth and look at the facts, you'll begin to understand that you really don't own anything at all. Instead, you're the one that's owned. You see, it is the central banks around the world and the people that they employ that are the true enemy of the state, the true enemy of the people. They're the ones that create the money they force you to use out of thin air, inflate our currency, and bankrupt our respective countries, all while bailing out their friends and family when it's convenient and stealing from the rest of us. There is no accountability, their crimes are left unpunished, and more importantly, there is no justice. And you see, in my opinion, this is what Occupy Wall Street is fundamentally missing, and it's vital that we unite on this central theme if we were to have any hope for real change or a better and brighter future. We must act now, and actively jail and prosecute these criminals. These are crimes against humanity, and they deserve punishment. It's really very simple, people. End the central banks and jail the criminals that they employ. This is a critical first step to the movement, because without addressing this key issue first, the movement will be co-opted by the same evil people that brought us here to begin with, and Occupy Wall Street will become a moot point. This is why we must join together now and unite in this critical call to action, because without it, nothing will change. If we allow these people to continue to operate covertly under the guise of these institutions, then we only continue our enslavement. We become no better and are no better than our slave masters. Without accountability and without justice, there is no moral fabric guiding our society, and more importantly, there is no reason to obey the law. Instead, there is only chaos, recklessness, and a system that is bankrupted both morally and financially. This is where we stand today. You want freedom? You want real change? Then jail the criminals enslaving us and end the privately owned central banks. Then, let's talk demands. I'm Christopher Green. You've been watching Greenwave TV, alternative media television, and I just deliver the Daily Wave. Hard-hitting and in your face, America.